Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, and I'm nude too, obviously, here with another frightful installment of my harrowing tales from an ex-witness youth. And I'm going to tread carefully here, more so than usual. All of my tales that I share from my Jehovah's Witness upbringing mean one thing or another to me, but not all of them are as instructive as this one is about the true nature of Watchtower Corporation. All of them mean one thing or another to me, but not all of them truly demonstrate the evil behind this insane religion. And this has to do with how they handle allegations of child molestation. Now let's turn back the clock to a time when I was 12 or 13, and when I was first introduced to a very strange family that had moved up from the southern part of the United States. And this was the Daniels family. Names have been changed. And the members of the Daniels family were Seamus Sr., Seamus Jr., and Seamuson, the youngest brother, and wife Cheryl. Now, the Daniels family were very oddballs, even considering Jehovah's Witness standards in that matter. They were very socially backwards. Their children acted even younger than their ages would belie. And they just are a very strange, uptight bunch. Holier than thou, while simultaneously being incredibly naive and almost childlike in their understanding of the world that surrounds them. And this was reflected in the way that they raised their youth. And so myself, Ethan, you obviously already know my name, no need to change that, and my friend Darkwan, we slowly came to begrudgingly at first befriend these two new youth, Seamus Jr. and Seamuson, mostly from encouragement from our parents. Obviously they would arrange get-togethers since we were in lack of transportation at 13. And yeah, we would socialize, and as Darkwan and myself matured and began to notice assets on the woman's body, we would share these musings with our friend Seamus Jr., to which he was totally and completely amiss, and he's older than us. Seamus Jr., while we're 12, I was 12, Darkwan was 13, he was 14, almost 15. Or no, that's not quite right, he was like 14. So theoretically, he should have been aware of these inclinations far before either of us. That turned out not to be the case. But, we persuaded him after a certain amount of time, and gradually, very awkwardly, he became aware of these new features of the female body. Oh my! Boobs, nipples, vagina. Oh my, he still is quite the backward lad. Yeah. And eventually he found himself attracted to, mutually, very strangely, considering Jehovah's Witnesses and their, well anyway, he was about 16 at the time, and he found himself attracted to a whale of a woman by the name of Sierra, who was also 16, or just thereabouts. And he didn't have sex, but there was some foreplay. He fondled her boobs, and there was some general groping and rubbing, and anyway, yeah. Hey, you're 16. At that time, you're both chock full of hormones, and you're put in a dark room. What the fuck do you think is going to happen? But it was discovered by Seamus Jr.'s mother, Cheryl, at the confession of Sierra. Stupid bitch. What a whale. Ugly slut. Lesbian. Anyway, no, seriously, lesbian. Anyway. And the elders handled this matter rather harshly. they took his privileges away and privately reproved him. Now, this is an activity, mind you, that most people would consider to be understandable, even by witness standards. Might not be praiseworthy as it would by worldly standards, but certainly understandable. And it was felt necessary for this activity to be punished. Now fast forward a few more years, deprived of any outlet whatsoever, not even Rosie Palm and her 5 sisters because of the open door policy that family maintained, along with the fact that his brother was right across the hall. I mean, what a poor, deprived, frustrated individual who often told us of these frustrations, which is how I know. Those were definitely not pleasant conversations. Anyway, enter the Gilman family. Now, I want to give props to Sister Gilman. She was irregular in her meeting attendance, and as an irregular person, she maintained a rather well-groomed and reasonable conscience, unlike other Jehovah's Witnesses. And she had long since raised her own children and seen them out of the house. And she had the decency, the kind-heartedness, and the gracious nature to open the doors of her home to 4 young girls ranging from the age of 9 to 13. Yeah. What an honorable action. They were semi-distant relatives of hers, and they came from a neglectful household. Not a physically abusive household, fortunately, just a neglectful one that did not care for or have the really capacity to care for those young girls. And so she opened up the doors of her home to care for her relatives. And several of the older sisters in the congregation, ranging from the menopausal years of the 40s all the way up to the dry, crusty years of the 60s, decided to take these young girls under their wing and mentor them. That's even pretty praiseworthy behavior by Jehovah's Witness standards. It's certainly unusually kind. And the girls were all appreciative, and they felt included and loved, and it's probably helped them to develop into mature young women as they're still quite young. Anyway, at this time I was exiting the organization, or I was learning much about the organization. I had learned about their stance on child molestation allegations, and I had discovered their involvement with the UN, and of course learned the truth about the scripture, namely that paradise earth never occurs in the Bible, even in their interpretation, and several other things. And I had moved out from my home congregation. Well, anyway, so Cheryl, the mother of Seamus Jr., invited these young women over to her house. And the youngest was, I want to say 9 or 10, thereabouts, and associating with Seamus Jr.'s younger brother, Seamuson. They have a name for a penchant for Seamus. Yeah, I know. They're not very inventive folks either. And so Seamuson and her were playing. Hey, wonderful. What a healthy activity for 2 young people to do. And, of course, in strides Seamus Jr., the older brother. Okay, yeah, just wanting to see what his little brother's up to. Understandable. And his little brother instigates a tickle fight. Hey, little kids. Let's see, Seamuson would have been like 11 or 12 when this happened. Seamus Jr. was 19 or 20. Or no, 20. Yeah, he was 20. And so, Seamus Jr., being brother, obviously, engages along, tickle, 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 familial gesture of love, certainly understandable. And then the little girl gets involved, which, hey, innocent enough, one might think. And the testimony of Seamuson and the little girl both maintained that there was some inappropriate touching that happened to her. There was no nudity involved, and the way it was described, it could have been potentially accidental, potentially innocent. We got to remember that this is a backwards individual who might not know the implications of his own action, or who may simply have been unaware. We can't say for sure. But this young girl had the fortitude, the state of mind, and the constitution to report this to her mommy. Wonderful. That's probably the happiest part of this tale, because that means she's going to grow up into a balanced person. If she knows now not to forfeit her conscience for the benefit of Watchtower Corporation, then she'll do fine, I trust. And needless to say, the reaction of Sister Gilman was appropriate, namely that of pure vengeful rage and indignation, and she gave the mother, Cheryl, a good talking to, along with the son, Seamus Jr., a good talking to nip this right in the bud. But for whatever reason, Sister Gilman felt that this was not enough. And this is the point where I first became aware of what was transpiring. Darkwan filled me in and told me what was happening. And we were both equally shocked, but at the same time somewhat unsurprised, because of the backward nature of this young man. And having been aware of Jehovah's Witnesses and their general stance, and knowing the fact that Seamus Jr.'s father, Seamus Sr., was an elder, I surmised what would happen, and I informed Darkwan, my friend, that nothing would be done, that no punishment would be meted out, and it would all be swept under the rug, and even the potential that Sister Gilman would be threatened with disfellowshipping. I lined it all out. That's the standard procedure of Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is the particularly disturbing, sordid, putrescent aspect of this tale. Because Jehovah's Witnesses lived up to expectation in every way imaginable. Sure enough, Sister Gilman was threatened with being disfellowshipped should she report this incident to the police. The family was told to cease and desist in communicating any signs of problems to the outside world, and rather to handle this matter privately between they and their son. Now, recall that Seamus Jr. had fondled and groped Sierra when he was 16, and this was deserving, obviously, of severe punishment. His privileges were removed, and he was privately reproved. But now, a potentially more disturbing and sinister activity has been reported and brought to light, and obviously merited some investigation, if not by the authorities, then at least by the religious authorities, who are supposed to protect their flock. But sure enough, it was all swept under the rug in the name of Jehovah. And after nothing was done, and after I conveyed to Darkwan my feelings on the matter, a few weeks later I exited from Watchtower Corporation myself. And reflecting on these events and how the matter was handled, and putting them in context of the many other far more nefarious instances of this horrible, disgusting practice, I can say wholeheartedly that I made the right decision to leave that filthy, pagan, disgusting, dishonest, evil corporation and the corrupt men that represent their interests. Try not to think about this story the next time you see your elder body, especially if you go to my congregation.